Hey, good to have you with us. It's Bills by the Numbers, where we let the stats tell you where the Bills are at. We're presented by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Coming up, the Bills have often been in the bottom third of the league in yards after the catch, but this year they're on pace to finish in the top 5. What has changed? Why the Bills should go more up-tempo on offense, and former NFL lineman Matt McChesney talks Broncos for the Monday night matchup. Hey, what do you mean that's not tripping? Yes, I am still sore about Cameron Taylor-Britt tripping Dalton Kincaid in the Bengals game last week. We're trying to regroup here on Bills by the Numbers. Bills Wall of Famer Steve Tasker, Bills insider Chris Brown with you. And while Buffalo's offense has stumbled at times this season in an effort to find a rhythm, there are some areas where they remain near the top of the league when it comes to efficiency. For example, third down, where they're number one in the league in conversion rate at 50%. Sacks allowed, where they are second. And red zone touchdown percentage, where they are third at almost 69% success rate. And there's one additional area where they are excelling, where they have rarely excelled before. Yards after the catch. How surprised would you be, Steve Tasker, if I told you that the Bills rank 5th in the league in yards after the catch thus far this season?
Not too surprised. Dalton Kincaid's made a little bit of a difference. And if you remember, too, Steph Diggs has had 2 long runs that were short catches and long. One in the Cincinnati game and, of course, the one against who was it? Washington? No, it was Miami when he spun out of the double tackle at 55 yards. So they've got some big plays sprinkled in there. And with Kincaid in the mix, he's been able to do it as well a couple of times. So top 5 surprises me a little bit, but I knew that they wouldn't be at the bottom of the league like they have been.
Yes, that has been the recent history for them, and it has changed dramatically. Buffalo currently has 1,081 yards after the catch as a team this season in 9 games, which means they're averaging about 120 yards after the catch per game. Last season, Buffalo ranked 26th in yards after the catch, averaged just 99 yards a game. What do we believe is the reason for the uptick this season?
I do think it's the big plays that we've had, Steph Diggs most notably. And I also think it's a little bit of an evolution away from, the long ball. We haven't seen that very much at all. In years past, there's been some of that. And, I think this, and let's face it, we're talking, a couple of dozen yards a game, so it's not really sprinkled over the course of the game. You're talking about 3 yards here, 5 yards there, 6 yards there. It really won't stand out to you. But I think it has more to do with Josh. And, Josh leading the league in completion percentage. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the reasons as well. You got a lot of chances to catch it, make one guy miss, get a couple extra yards, and that adds up over a game.
We had Khalil Shakir in our studio here during our daily show, One Bills Live, and I asked him about it as well, that very subject, and he said it is a point of emphasis every single day in practice. Offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey has been harping on it for each of the last 2 seasons, and he has not relented. And Khalil says, it just kind of becomes a natural part of your consciousness as a receiver. Now when I'm catching the ball, I'm already looking for openings to find those extra few yards, and he's done some of that. He ran over a defender a couple of weeks ago against Tampa Bay. He doesn't usually do that. I mean, he's not a giant guy. He's 6 foot, 190, and he's bowling over a linebacker for extra yards down the sideline. The sideline's getting fired up. So I think there is this holistic consciousness now that exists among the wide receiving core and the backs, for that matter, and the tight ends, to try to get every yard they can get to try to assist the offense in any way they can in that area. Stephon Diggs, to no one's surprise, is the team leader in yards after the catch with 251 on the season after 9 games played. Who would you guess, Steve, is second in this category?
I would guess it would be Dalton Kincaid.
And you would be incorrect, Steve.
Really? I'm shocked that I'm wrong.
It is
shocked.
It is James Cook.
Oh, I forgot about
Second in yards after catch. How surprised are we that it's him?
No, I'm not. I forgot about it. I figured because he's catching short passes and he's
and
running
then running.
well. Yeah, and he's running. So most of his yards are like that. So all right, you got me.
And he does have make you miss ability.
Yeah.
He also leads the Bills in yards after catch per reception with a figure of 8.77 yards after the catch on average. Do you think it means he should get more opportunities in the passing game, or is it just a byproduct of the routes he runs?
It's a little byproduct of the position he plays in the routes he's called to play, coming out of the backfield. You saw it on the Cincinnati game this last week. He had 4 targets, 4 catches. I had like 40, 41 yards, and that's just him catching it and run because he catches some of these things right at the line of scrimmage and gets his positive yards that way. So, and I don't think unless you just give him so for instance, if he had this 4 catches in Cincinnati for 4 targets, if that gets to 2 or 3 more, goes to 7 or maybe 8, you don't want to double it. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But if you're ahead of the sticks and you keep getting first downs, yeah. But that's what I would think.
Yeah.
It just more of the same, and it doesn't have to be where you say, okay, you got to give him 12 touches again, 12 catches a game. No. More than the 4, okay, but probably not as many as Diggs. You're not going to target him as much as Diggs, and I wouldn't target him as much as Kincaid either. But he does need to be there.
Yeah.
And I think if there is a game where he gets 12 catches, 13 catches, it's because of the defense they're playing and because of the situation out there. It's a one-game thing.
But that's my point, because every week they see this cover 2 shell and keep everything in front of them. That's the defensive approach they're seeing every week. Why not utilize him more, especially knowing most of his routes are short. He's not covered in an airtight way by anybody who's assigned to him. They're going to give him space because they're dropping into those hook zones or wherever else.
Right.
And then they have to close on him when the ball goes there. And he's got the ability to make people miss in space. So
right.
I'm all for getting him more of those check down throws, especially if the defense is going to play that nothing cheap, nothing deep type of approach. There has been a lot of debate the last couple of weeks about the Bills' identity on offense. Many fans are lobbying for more up-tempo play as the offense has appeared to kick into rhythm quicker when they go fast. But there appears to be 2 sides to the argument of going with it or not. If they go fast and they are successful, all is right with the world. They're scoring 30 or more points in all likelihood, and the burden is off an injury-riddled defense. If they go fast and aren't successful, now all the burden is on an injury-riddled defense to carry the team to victory, something they have not been able to do except in the Giants and Buccaneers games. Question to you, Steve Tasker. You have a little experience in this no-huddle stuff. What should they do?
Well, yeah, that no huddle is one thing, and we've talked about this on the Daily Show too. No huddle is one thing, but going fast is another. That's the thing. If you're going to go no huddle, that's fine. You go up to the line of scrimmage. Indianapolis with Peyton Manning did this a lot. They wouldn't huddle. They would go to the line. Peyton would call code words and all of this stuff, and he would look at the defense and call what he
and
thought.
let the play clock go down to 1.
Right, and he would let the play clock go down to 1. If you're going to run a hurry up, you snap the ball with 15 seconds on the play clock. You snap the ball with 20 seconds left on the play clock. You go. And one of the only caveat to that is you've got to make first downs and stay on the field. If you do stay on the field and you don't substitute and don't allow the defense to substitute, the defensive pressure and the pass rush evaporates in about 4 or 5 plays, maybe less if you go fast. And that's when it starts to snowball. Then it's like they can't pass rush. Then you've got all kinds of time.
They're wiped out.
They're wiped out. You got the big heavies, and the offensive linemen literally just hold those guys up.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's, the benefit. But the obvious is this, you go 1, 2, 3 and out, going no huddle, fast pace, and the defense doesn't even get a chance to get a drink of water, let alone rest.
There's a part of me that believes if Buffalo's defense is even marginally healthier, this isn't even a debate. They just do it. But because that defense is so injury-riddled, even more now in the wake of the Bengals game, I almost feel like they say, look, we're in a catch-22 situation here. We can't have the defense out there for 65 plays because we don't have enough guys to be an effective defense like we're used to being, shutting people down, getting off the field on third down, those kinds of things. They have some areas where they are still effective, red zone, for example, but the law of diminishing returns is starting to apply to this Bills defense. So on one hand, you say, we can't afford to take the risk of going fast because if we're off the field fast because we can't convert on third down, even though we're the number one third down team in the league, we're exposing our defense. I say you're already doing that now because your offense can't stay on the field for whatever reason or has these lulls in play for a quarter and a half and exposes your defense that way. You might as well just go fast and see if it works.
Yeah, and even if you do, but here's the thing, too. You expose the defense even if you are successful because back in the day, you score on a 4 or 5 play drive going fast. It's not even 60 seconds off the game clock.
Yeah.
It's a 4 or 5 play drive. It's all great, but the defense is back on. So you'll see an uptick in the possessions in the game and the number of plays the defense has to defend. But would you rather defend and do that with a 15 or 18 or 17-point lead rather than trailing by 3?
And that's my point because people are like, oh, what's happened to the defense? How come they're not getting takeaways? Bills have not had an interception in a game in 5 games. No interceptions in their last 5 games. Why? Because the other team is in the game on the scoreboard. They're either playing ahead or they're within a score of the Bills, so no need to throw the ball all over the yard. So what does that mean? A defense that relies on splash plays like sacks and interceptions does not have nearly the same number of opportunities because that other team's running the ball, they're mixing in play action, they're ahead on the scoreboard, they're not making high-risk plays. So now the pass rush can't get off because they're not in third down and long distance. The opposing offense is in long down and distance situations. There isn't a chance for a pass rush to affect the quarterback, make ill-advised throws, which then decreases the opportunities for the defenders on the back end to make plays on the ball and head the other way. That is, in essence, what has happened to this defense over the better part of the last 4 or 5 games. As for the numbers on Buffalo's no huddle, they've gone no huddle on a total of 82 plays this season. That ranks 6th most in the league. Josh Allen's completion percentage in no huddle, almost 68%. They've scored 3 touchdowns on no-huddle plays. They also have 2 turnovers and an average of 5.1 yards per play. On the season, the Bills average 5.9 yards per play. So the production is kind of hard to gauge. It's a small sample, relatively speaking, but no-huddle has been used just 14.5% of the time thus far this season. We'll keep an eye on it here in successive weeks to see if that percentage increases. We turn to Buffalo's next matchup on the schedule, the Denver Broncos on Monday Night Football. Here to give us more on Denver's season under new head coach Sean Payton is former NFL offensive lineman and co-host of the 0 to 60 podcast on the Believe Podcast Network. It's Matt McChesney. All right, Matt, I'm curious about this concerning the Broncos, maybe more than anything else. Javonte Williams, as we know, coming back this season from the ACL last season. Some people have talked about whether his explosiveness is all the way back yet. We always know he's been a powerful runner. Does he have the burst? Are we seeing signs of that returning to his game?
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. You guys do a great job. It's going to be a hell of a game on Monday night, Denver Buffalo. I'm not concerned about Javonte. Being a lineman, I don't know what it's like to be explosive. I'm a lumberer, but at the same time, watching the way he ran as a rookie and how powerful and explosive he was, I'm not saying they rushed him back. I'm saying he's a competitor and wanted to come back, got cleared. With Pirine on the field and then McLaughlin, the undrafted kid, who I think is going to be Sean Payton's Darren Sproles. And I played against Darren in college and in the NFL, and he was a real pain. Small and shifty. I think that's where you're going to get the majority of your big plays from the running back position moving forward. Javonte is going to be your hammer, but they also got Pirine for that as well. So if I'm Javonte Williams, I think that next year will probably be his breakout if they want to feature him. That's the other thing is I think Javonte needs 20, 25 carries a game. And I don't know how many guys in the NFL are actually going to get that kind of work in today's offensive systems with multiple backs. So he gets better as the game goes on, but I don't know if Coach Payton wants to showcase a running back as much as he would like to showcase 3 of them. So I guess it would be – I think next year we'll see more of the real Javonte Williams.
Do you think Sean Payton is willing to make some concessions for say, Russ Wilson and what his skill set is? I mean, he worked best in Seattle when he had a hard running game, when he has the play action, he's nifty in the pocket, that kind of thing. Is Sean Payton willing to work with what he's got there on the roster with Russ Wilson, what he does best, and the guys in the running back room?
And look, I'm so glad you brought that up. And look, a quarterback's best friend is the ability to pipe the ball. And Russell Wilson was outstanding in Seattle, the number one play-action quarterback for years. I mean, Tyler Lockett and Baldwin and those guys, they made a living off of deep seam routes and setting up things off play action. It forces the wide receivers to buy into blocking. You know, I'm from Denver, so I grew up in the Shanahan era where, you know, I was in high school when they were running the zone scheme and McCaffrey and all those guys are blocking. And, you know, I know Steve playing for as long as he did in Buffalo. If you don't block, you probably don't get on the field. And Marv Levy is your coach, and Kelly and Thurman Thomas and all those boys. So I think that the scheme that they ran in Denver at the beginning of the year, playing hero ball with Russell Wilson, throwing the ball like 40-plus times against Washington, running it like 15, that's how you lose. That's how you go 3-5. I think if it was flipped and they were playing like they did against Kansas City, which plays into the hands of a good defense, getting turnovers, running the ball 40 times, only throwing it 19, 3 of those throws turning into touchdowns, 114 yards passing, but 3 tutties. You know, they struggle immensely with pass protection. I know that Buffalo has some good pass rushers, but, you know, Vaughn's not back to where he was, and Floyd's a hell of a player. You guys got dudes. This is a get-right game for the Bills up front if they want to get after the passer. You know, 19 throws against Kansas City. They gave up 10 pressures and 6 sacks. That ain't good. So if Sean Payton wants to take advantage of a $130 million offensive line and the ability to lean on people, he went out and signed Troutman and Manhurts, 2 big, physical run block tight ends. Nate Atkins made this football team. He's a 260-pound fullback. They've got Michael Burton, who also plays fullback. But then they don't consistently maximize 12 personnel, 13 personnel, 21, 22, you know, multiple tight ends, fullbacks on the field where you can change strength and scissor tight ends and zone scheme and power scheme, and then set up the play action and the bootleg and all the pocket movement off of it. So I think that he was forced to make these changes, especially after the Miami debacle and the team underachieving, yet Russ playing at a level from a stat perspective that people would say was respectable. I don't really care about the numbers from the quarterback as more as the efficiency of the scheme and the system that we're trying to implement. And when Sean Payton was forced to make these changes, because at that point the season was about to be over and they were about to fire sale before they beat Green Bay and then beat Kansas City for the first time in 8 years, which I can't even believe I'm saying. You know, with a bye week going into Buffalo, this is an opportunity for Denver to keep the party going, because the only way you're going to beat the Bills in Orchard Park, which I think would be a massive upset for Denver and put them on a trail to maybe making the playoffs, beating back-to-back teams that I think are playoff bound. The only way you're going to beat them is to control time of possession by 10-plus minutes, get multiple turnovers, run the football, and not put it all on Russell Wilson. You know, it's almost a dichotomy of Buffalo. Like, if Josh Allen was supported at all through a running game and didn't have to run the ball 15 times a game and 90% of the offense didn't run through him, you guys would probably be a Super Bowl team. So I think it's all about the scheme you put your guys in and the ability to change that scheme week in and week out.
All right, so Matt, let's flip it over to Denver's defense. I mean, some of those numbers are pretty ugly for them, and we know why. There's a 70-point game in there that's going to skew them. But from all the accounts that we're hearing, the defense has made some improvements. Where do you think the best improvements, most notable improvements have been made by Denver on the defensive side of the ball?
Well, look, they got rid of turds. And when I say turds, I mean Randy Gregory and Clark. And they started playing Benito. Browning got healthy. They started playing Cooper, young guys that aren't, you know, $75 million guys who are entitled. They're playing guys who are chasing that bag. Coach Joseph, Vance Joseph, simplified. He got Justin Simmons back. I love Kareem Jackson, but you know, he's got to figure out a way to play within the rules, unfortunately, because I love, you know, headhunter free safeties, but it's a dead part of the game. He's been off the field for 2 weeks, and they've played really good in the secondary. Alex Singleton is a sideline to sideline predator who, had to earn everything he's gotten. So you've got a lot of hungry dudes on defense. And I understand that they went to Miami and gave up 70 points. I know. I watched every minute. Everybody laughed at it. When you go to Miami 2 days early and it turns into a vacation, you get your ass kicked. So, but I also just watched them 2 out of the last 3 weeks hold Kansas City, the defending Super Bowl champions, to 25 total points and 6 turnovers and make Mahomes look pedestrian. And they covered up Travis Kelce and they beat up the defensive, or they beat up the offensive line and they beat up the defensive front. They lost the game at Arrowhead 18-9, but then they came back 2 days later or 2 weeks later and dominated Kansas City at home. And so I would like to think that in a week-by-week league, they're getting better at the right time. They kind of figured out everything quarter by quarter. And by quarter, I mean the first 4, the second 4, the third 4, and the last 5. So Denver's got everything in front of them. And look, with 10 days, 11 days off before they go to Orchard Park playing on Monday night, I think that this is going to be one super competitive, hard-hitting, kick-ass football game with 2 teams that Buffalo can't afford to drop another one. And then, they're chasing Miami, and Denver damn sure can't afford to drop games. So they already have a losing record. They're trying to rebound and get to 500 to see where they can go.
So give us a synopsis here. Is this a little bit of a surprise at how Sean Payton has kind of figured out and turned out? Certainly they bottomed out in the first month of the season, and you kind of feel like they are on the ascent. But is this? I mean, obviously it's not a complete roster, particularly on the defensive side. But what is the vibe coming out of the line, and what's the rhetoric coming out of Denver about this team, where it's headed, and how far they have to go?
Well, look, at the beginning of the year, the narrative was, last year was a disaster. And, Coach Payton's coming in with an iron fist and he's ruling the way he wants. And I think that they used the first 4 and the preseason to figure out what they had. And I respect the fact that he made so many cutthroat decisions. I don't think George Payton, the GM, is making the decisions necessarily. I think he's kind of a lame duck GM. Sean Payton has all the authority in Denver. And when he starts making changes and cutting guys and trading guys and the team improves, and I don't really think he wants to do it in the back of his head, he just knows he has to. That's true leadership to me. So making hard decisions is what the NFL is. And I know he wants to throw the ball all over the yard. He's Sean Payton. He had Drew Brees. Of course he wanted to do that. But people forget that Drew Brees was also supported with unbelievably good offensive lines and running games every year he was in New Orleans. So multiple backs and multiple formation packages and really, really maximizing your athletes. And I think Coach Payton looked at what he had and said, okay, we can either play the way I want to play or we can play the way we need to play. And like I said earlier, he was forced into this. I think that the ugliness of the beginning of the season and people mocking the Broncos and questioning him as a coach and saying that we should fire sale the team and everybody should get traded and just totally break it down to the studs and rebuild and cut Russ and all this other stuff. I think that he looked at himself in the mirror and said, okay, I either adapt or die. And the team I have now is the team we need to roll with. And the best way to suit our personnel is to maximize it through the scheme. So, Don Shula's little book of coaching always, there's a great line in it that your plan isn't worth a damn if you can't change it. So I respect the fact that he tried something at the beginning of the year. It obviously didn't work. And not only has he changed the offensive scheme and how to suit his players there, but he's also either forced or helped Vance Joseph change the defensive scheme, simplify so they can just play sideline to sideline and put pressure on teams with their outstanding front. So it's a lot of give and take, but the fact that he's not just taking as the head coach and he's not like being the Josh McDaniels type, like come in and just rule with an iron fist. I played for Josh here in Denver. It was not fun, not surprising what happened in Vegas. The fact that he is a lot of give and take with his team and with his coaches, it's not what I expected from him at all. And I like the chameleon aspect of how he coaches.
Matt, thanks for the time. As always, we appreciate it. We'll catch up with you down the line.
Amen, boys, and go Broncos.
And we knew that was coming. Hey, Bills fans, get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Just download the app today and play any way you want. Plus, with live betting, you'll get updated odds on games that have already started. Best of all, you'll get paid your winnings fast. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the Buffalo Bills. We transition now to the numbers game, where Steve will be quizzed on yards after the catch history for the Bills, which fortunately for him only goes back to 2006. Question number 1, Steve Areno.
Right.
How many times since 2006 have the Bills finished in the top 10 as a team in yards after the catch?
How many times?
How many top 10 finishes in yards after the catch since 2006 for this Bills offense?
2006. That's 17 years.
Yep.
Top 10. I'll say 6 of those years.
You're very generous, Steve.
Oh.
It has only happened twice.
Oh, goodness.
Remember, we're dealing with a lot of drought years.
I
here.
know. I was, and I thought they'd been done it a couple of. No, they were.
It's only happened twice.
Yeah,
2011 with Fitz at quarterback.
Wow.
And 2014 with your friend and mine, Kyle Orton at the helm.
There you go.
Question number
All right.
2. You can probably guess that Stephon Diggs led the Bills in yards after the catch last season. Who do you believe was second on the team in yards after the catch in 2022?
Last season, Devin Singletary.
Incorrect. I'll give you one more stab at it.
I will say Dawson Knox.
There you go, Steve. Ding, ding, ding. 193 yards after the catch for Dawson Knox. Finished second. I believe Singletary was third that year, so that wasn't a poor guess. Question 3. Knowing they didn't have the yards after the catch statistic back when you played, who do you think led the Bills in receiving average in 1990? What player?
Andre Reed.
That would be incorrect, Steve.
James Lofton.
It was James Lofton. 20.3 yards per catch in 1990.
Yeah.
And your final question, question 4, who is the player who would barely beat out that receiving average of Lofton's to set a new single-season team record for receiving average? Got to be higher than 20.3.
Eric Moulds.
That is correct. Eric Moulds, 20.4 in 1998, which was also his first Pro Bowl season. You finished strong there, Steve.
Yep.
Well done in the
Thank you.
numbers game.
Thank you very much.
Well done. We now help you with the free-to-play pick'em game on FanDuel.com called High-Low. Each week, pick a player or team to finish with the highest or lowest total for the week in a number of different statistical categories to earn points. The more points you earn, the bigger prize you can win. Play free for a chance at $10,000 in total prizes every Sunday. I'll lead us off with the high for passing yards. I'm taking the Detroit Lions this week. They're matched up with the LA Chargers. And while the Chargers' defensive performance was impressive on Monday night against the Jets, the Lions' offense is a much different animal than the Jets with Zach Wilson, all due respect. The Chargers have the worst passing defense in football. So I'm expecting Detroit's number 6 passing offense to feast.
The low for passing yards, I'm taking your New York Football Giants in Dallas. Daniel Jones is out for the season with injury. And what's a guy, honestly, is it Danny DeVito? Tommy DeVito, yeah. Tommy DeVito or anybody else. Nobody else on Dallas's roster can throw the football. They didn't even want DeVito to throw the football in their last game. The Giants are going to get shut completely down by the Dallas defense. Low in passing yards for the Giants.
All right, high for rushing yards. I'm going in that same game. Tony Pollard of the Cowboys. New York has had trouble stopping the run, and I think that will be the case in this divisional matchup as well.
For low rushing yards, it might surprise you, but I'm going to go Austin Eckler for the Chargers. The Lions, they're going against the Lions defense. They can really stop the run. I think the Lions are going to score points. I think they're going to put the game in L.A. For the Chargers, they're going to put it on Justin Herbert. Eckler's going to be out of the mix, and that Giants defense is not going to let him run anyway. So I'm going to take Austin Eckler for low in rushing yards.
All right, high for receiving yards. I'm going right back to that Cowboys-Giants game with the hottest receiver in football right now, C.D. Lamb. The Giants just lost one of their top 2 corners to injury in Adoree Jackson. Being shorthanded only makes them more vulnerable and makes me more confident in CD Lamb.
All right, low for receiving yards. I'm going to take Tank Dell. The Texans are playing well, and they're a plucky bunch, and they had this huge game, but I think they're going to come back down to earth facing a Cincinnati Bengals defense with Lou Anarumo as their coordinator. I just don't see Tank Dell having much success against a Bengals secondary, including a nickel corner, Mike Hilton. So I'm going to take low for receiving yards and Tank Dell of the Houston Texans.
All right, our closing figure this week deals with Buffalo's opponent, the Denver Broncos. At midseason, the Broncos defense currently allows the highest opponent passer rating in the league. Opposing quarterbacks have an average passer rating of 106.3. The Broncos also allow a league-high 8.1 yards per attempt to opposing quarterbacks. That'll do it for this episode. Be sure to subscribe to Bills by the Numbers on whatever podcast platform you use. And remember, when you need to know about the Bills, you need to check Bills by the Numbers. For Steve Tasker, I'm Chris Brown. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time, everybody.